clicking past, ain't feeling his hymn. Waiting for the moment, blow up like a piston. Haters gonna hate, but persistence gonna glisten. Hold tight, 20 turn 200 someday. Laugh in their face, shouting, who wants some pay? Barber Show.
What up, Twitch? What up, Twitch? What up, Twitch? What up, PETA? What up, one guy? What up, most innocent bystander? Welcome in. What up, bots? What up, lurkers? What up, tiny people in my chatterino? It's your boy. It's your boy. Welcome to the super secret Saturday stream. Just figured I'd do one to make up for some of the missed streams this week. We'll chill, watch some videos. Figure that would be acceptable. I hope you're having a wonderful Saturday. Saturday the 14th. And let us, without further ado, get into some videos. First up, new Nate talking about data scarcity.
You know, Ilya Sutskever said data is the new oil, which is, I suppose, not a new thing to say, but it's Ilya, and he's one of the leading lights of the AI generation. And when he said it at NeurIPS in November 2024, we all paid attention. There have been two major trend lines since then that make me think that Ilya needs to update his priors. I know, who am I to say that? I'm nobody to say that. So let me just finish my thing. Number one, data is getting locked off actively. And this is something that's actually in favor of Ilya's contention, right? So Ilya's contention is that we're running out of data to train on because there's only so much data in the world to train on. What if we're running out faster than he thought because people are actively locking off sources of data? We see that on a few places. One, if you've been on this channel, OpenAI bought Windsurf, Anthropic cut off model access to Windsurf for their Claude models because you don't want to let those guys get the models, right? Then the model output tokens would go to their rival OpenAI, and that would be a problem. It's a data lock off. And this is for future data streams. This is for data that users generate in the tool. What I would call user-generated artificial data, because it's artificial because it's coming from a model, but it's user-generated because you're prompting for it. I think it's one of the biggest sources of renewable data that we have. ChatGPT generates a ton of user-generated artificial data. It's one of their greatest sources of data, I would hypothesize. And Anthropic.
What up, old lobster? That's next weekend. Next weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, I might be back for Monday evening. And I will probably be here for Friday morning, but I won't be here for the normal Friday evening, Monday morning.
Did not want that valuable code data to go to OpenAI. Okay. Second development in that direction, Salesforce has reportedly cut the rapidly growing company Glean off from getting access to Slack messages. And why does that matter? Glean specializes in dealing with a single pane of glass that executives can see what's happening in the whole business. They need Slack to do it. And so Salesforce is cutting Glean off at the knees because Salesforce views Slack data as highly valuable in the age of AI. And I would agree, I think it is. But Salesforce is making moves they didn't make last year because they understand better at the executive level that they need to ring fence that data in order to prevent people from getting a hold of it. And again, this is not necessarily user-generated artificial tokens in this case. This is just user-generated data. We're typing in Slack all day. Well, now Glean can't get a hold of it. I would expect those restrictions to continue to tighten. Third one is on the legal side. I talked about the New York Times suing OpenAI and kind of some of the problems with that. Disney suing Midjourney is sort of the next generation lawsuit here. They're basically saying that Midjourney allows users to create proprietary Disney characters. And without getting into the merits of the case, I think the story from the data side is essentially Disney is trying to lock off huge chunks of the data landscape to trainers and models, similar to what the New York Times is doing, chunks of the data landscape. Now, individually, these maybe huge chunks isn't fair. They're huge in terms.
Yes, Old Lobster, absolutely, right? Like that's my argument as well. But if you look at it from this point of view, right, that it's not about um the outputs, right? It's not about any of that copyright actually. What it is about is the data, then it makes some kind of sense, right? Like, and this could be the world that we're living in, is where the giant companies are walling off sections of data, for their own, because we know Disney does robots, right? Like we watched some of their developments in robots, and it would not surprise me to find out that Disney is working on some kind of world model, and video data could definitely play a role in that. So that's an interesting thing to think about.
Terms of nominal value, gigabytes and so on, terabytes, petabyte maybe, but they're not huge on the scale of like zettabytes, not huge on the scale of the internet. So I think if you remove them, the models would go on much as before. So 3 different ways in which we're cutting off access to data, making data effectively less common, less available, more of a resource that Ilya would say is not coming back and that we have to be careful with, right? So this is in favor of Ilya's contention, and in fact suggests that we may be accelerating the scarcity of data. But 2 is a little bit different. Theme 2 is this idea that we are taking data and we are very rapidly using machines to iterate on machine-generated data. Now, there was a very famous study done too long ago to matter, which means 2023 in AI terms, that suggests that synthetic data generated by AI can't be reliably used by AI. That's not true anymore. You have reports coming out of multiple major model makers that
everyone will be forced to wear contact lenses, that if you have not paid your subscription fee, you would be unable to watch the video that's currently playing in front of you. But you will see a pop-up that will allow you to submit your credit card data in order to begin your free trial.
Synthetic tokens are useful in the process of training. And now we've gone the next step. There are reports that there are automated iterative improvements at multiple major model makers driven by autonomous AI. And so I've seen leaks from both Anthropic and from OpenAI on the internet. Both suggest independently that they are working through the concept of AI-driven reinforcement learning. So instead of humans saying, is this a good thing or not, and driving reinforcement learning, which trains the model what responses to prefer or not, they're getting better responses out of the model by letting AI do the reinforcement learning on AI. AI taking over the training of AI, which, if you're wondering, is one of the big steps toward a generalized intelligence explosion. Because if AI can do it, there's really no barrier except power, right? You just turn on more power and AI can do more of it. And so in that world, does data still matter? If you can use AI to generate synthetic tokens and then use AI to reinforcement learn your way through. And the answer may be you don't really need the data, but you do have alignment questions, and that's a separate conversation. But it's one of those things where I've been watching the longer term trend line since NeurIPS, which is the conference Ilya spoke at, where he talked about the data piece. And I've been saying, well, how's the data story evolving in 2025? And I think the story is basically executives are waking up and shutting data off wherever they can. And at the same time, model makers are innovating and basically finding ways for it not to matter. They're finding ways for AI to drive reinforcement learning on synthetic tokens. So it's like, well, if you cut off the data, it doesn't matter. You tell me, where do you think the data story is going in the rest?
Up next, related to this as a concept, Meta has purchased Scale AI.
Of 2025.
Let's get to our Deirdre Bosa this morning at One Market with some big valuation news in the AI space. Morning, Dee.
There's a lot going on this morning, Carl. First, Meta is paying nearly $15 billion for a Scale AI stake. I've confirmed with a source familiar with the deal. The information first reported.
Sorry, they're purchasing a stake. Critical step I'm waiting for is for the AI to make a decision about its training data before ingesting it, where an AI will compare data points and tell itself this data is more valuable, correct, etc., than the other data and reject either previous training or prevent it from being included. Yeah, no, like, because that's, you know, to the synthetic data point, to the poison data, right? Like a bunch of people are trying to poison data so that it can't be used, all that kind of stuff. All of that, you know, like, how do I, as an AI, right? How do I create this AI that can look at the quality of the data that it's looking at and say, okay, automatically, this is Garbo, this is Garbo, this is good, this is good, this is going to poison, so that goes its own little quarantine. And I expect, like, that there is some way to do that. You know, I don't see any reason why we won't get there, right? I just don't know when.
This new number. A previous report had pegged it to about $10 billion. So this approaches Meta's largest investment ever. Now, a source gave me more color around incentives as well, saying that...
God, I fucking hate Alexander Wang. And not just because he has no E between his D and his R, but because he's such a fucking little prick.
This is more about Scale AI founder Alexander Wang's AI network, less about the data labeling part of the business. Now, Wang is 28 years old. He's seen as a darling himself in the world of AI. He built critical infrastructure early. He has ties to both Silicon Valley and Washington. Meta, by contrast, seen as falling behind in the AI race. So the Scale AI deal seen as a way for Zuckerberg to get more credibility as he tries to turn around their own efforts. Scale AI, by the way, is a Disruptor 50 company. That list just announced this morning. So is Glean. This is another AI startup that just announced a $150 million funding round at a $7.2 billion valuation. Now, that's a more than 50% bump in less than a year. It's cap table. This is also a who's who of Silicon Valley VCs. Sequoia, Kleiner Perkins, General Catalyst, Altimeter Capital. The list goes really on and on.
Remember when that dude said about how the VC capital funding was drying up?
Unlike early AI darlings that focused on building foundation models, Glean sits in the app layer, embedding AI into search and workflows across the enterprise. I spoke exclusively to Glean CEO Arvind Jain, who told me what's driving that surge.
Large enterprises are actually they're more worried about this. They don't want to be left behind. The most important thing that I hear from businesses is they are trying to make sure that their workforce becomes AI first.
Now, the data backs it up also. This chart from Goldman Sachs, it shows enterprise AI adoption surged this year, but it still remains.
What? Ed Zitron told me that nobody was using AI.
It's below 10%. So it's early days, and that is where the upside is for investors. It's not just enterprises, though, and startups making moves. Not a slow news day. Never a slow news day in AI. Some of the most powerful companies in tech are making moves also. Reuters this morning reporting that OpenAI has struck a surprising deal with Google Cloud, even as Microsoft remains its largest backer, a sign that control over the different layers of AI is shifting, even splintering. OpenAI branching out from Microsoft, Google leveraging its in-house AI chips, those are called TPUs, to power even its rivals. And then that Glean funding round, Scale AI, it all shows that there's more room for startups to compete, not necessarily by building the models, but by making them useful. And that is, again, where the investor upside may be shifting, guys.
Yeah, exactly, Michael. And it's people can do whatever they want to do, right? Whatever they feel is good for them. But ultimately, it's something of a fool's errand, because yes, you are going to make sure that your data isn't included in, the data set. But that means that the preponderance of data in the data set is going to reflect probable political views that do not align with yours. So good job there, right? Like, I'm sure if you're betting on the bubble to burst, then you don't care, right? And this is part of the cyclical nature of the AI skeptic argument, is that it requires the system to fail in order to satisfy the conditions that the person involved is trying to, meet, right? You don't want your data included in the thing because it's without compensation or without permission and all that. But it also means that going forward, you're going to, have certain political views amplified in the data set and other political views removed from the data set. And that will be problematic. Up next, AI Daily Brief with commentary on the Meta Scale acquisition.
Okay, Deirdre, thank you very much. That was a lot you got in there, Deirdre Bosa.
Welcome back to the AI Daily Brief Headlines Edition, all the daily
What up, Tinker?
AI news you need in around 5 minutes. It's rare that we have a day that is chock full of headlines and has a big, thick, juicy main, but that is exactly the story of today. In our main episode, we will, of course, be talking
Phrasing
about O3's cost reduction and O3 Pro being released. But when it comes to mainstream media covering AI, it is in fact a different story that is dominating headlines. That is, of course, the report that Meta is about to pay about $15 billion for 49% of data labeling startup Scale. The company is taking non-voting shares, and obviously that 49% is very clearly designed to get around antitrust scrutiny, which is just a fact of life for all big tech companies now, despite the shifted administrations. One thing that has not really changed between the two is that big tech is very much in the antitrust hot seat. Importantly, though, this is not just an acquisition. And it's not even really that it
I didn't watch it here. I watched it elsewhere. It's fine. It's amusing. It's a tad crude. You know what I mean? But yeah, I mean, I've seen it. I understand. What up, Princess Kimberly? Good morning. Good morning.
would be Meta's biggest acquisition to date that's causing attention. The New York Times broke that this is also part of a larger shakeup in AI leadership at Meta. They wrote that Meta is preparing to unveil a new superintelligence lab with 28-year-old Scale AI CEO Alexander Wang at the helm. Several other Scale AI employees are expected to join Meta, and sources say that multiple 7- to 9-figure offers have been made to dozens of researchers from other leading AI labs.
Okay, so this is I can't remember what fucking cutesy fucking name they did it, but Microsoft acquired that other AI Inflection, right? Microsoft acquired Inflection, but didn't actually acquire an Inflection. They they gave it a bunch of money, they paid a bunch of investors, and then they said, all you people, do you want to come work over here, and just leave it like a skeleton crew over at Inflection? So it sounds like Meta's using that same playbook for their next go, because The most recent model that they released was not particularly impressive, right? And Jan LeCun has been talking about how LLMs are not the, way to AGI and like that. It is possible that this lab will be a new direction, right? Rather than pivot their existing lab, they'll either keep that doing what it's doing or eventually shut it down, but then take this and this, what sounds like a pseudo acquisition of Scale AI, to try for that super intelligence lab, and we shall see.
In other words, if this report is correct, Meta is rolling out compensation packages ranging up to hundreds of millions of dollars to poach top AI talent. The news, of course, comes in the context of multiple changes to AI leadership at Meta. After reportedly being panicked by the release of DeepSeek and failing to impress with their own Llama 4 model, some have seen Meta as being in a bit of a crisis. Bloomberg reports that Mark Zuckerberg himself is personally overseeing this new team, writing, Zuckerberg has prioritized recruiting for the secretive new team, referred to internally as a superintelligence group. He has an audacious...
No, absolutely. Like, Llama was... Llama was something, right? And it seemed to be positioning itself to be the open source model of choice, but then the Chinese models, Mistral, even the right, that's what I'm saying. It like seemed to be positioning itself as the open source product, and then they didn't they didn't like get it where it needed to go, and it got lapped.
Goal in mind. In his view, Meta can and should outstrip other tech companies in achieving AGI. Bloomberg sources say that the team is being hired up to around 50 people, including presumably Wang at the head of it. Now, what we don't have is information about current leadership at Facebook like Jan LeCun, but Zuckerberg's focus definitely appears to be this team. Those same Bloomberg sources say that Zuckerberg has rearranged...
Yeah, I think they're having a problem, right? Like, I think that they are... I think they did want to embrace the niche. I think that they wanted to do the same thing that a bunch of the Chinese models are trying to do, right? Is become your high quality open source backbone on which you build, whatever it is that you're trying to build, right? Like, and then however you license the shit in that regard, like, I mean, any of that shit is fucking weird business shit. But I think that they tried that, but couldn't keep up with what they were trying to accomplish. That's where I'm at with it. Guess we'll find out, right? That's the fun part. In 6 months, we'll be able to look back and see where we were.
Desks so the new staff will sit nearer to him. Now, interestingly, a lot of folks privately asked me what I thought the deal was here. While Scale AI's business is very successful and seems to be growing, they reportedly had $870 million in revenue last year and are on track for $2 billion this year. That's very clearly not the reason for Zuck to make this acquisition. It also doesn't seem like the natural place to go hunting for research talent, as that's not really what Scale does.
He claims to be being satirical here, right? Zuck just buying Scale to cut off the competition from Data, obviously. But we just watched that video from Nate that made that argument. You know what I mean?
The narrative that people have settled on quite quickly is about competition around data. Scale AI is somewhat unique as the largest startup providing data labeling services at scale. They have over 100,000 global contractors working on labeling images, video, and text. Now, at the beginning, that was mostly about
What do you think that's going to do, Old Lobster?
Training, but increasingly it's about higher order reinforcement learning from human feedback, which continues to be a key part of not only model advancement, but also things like compliance in new regimes like the EU's AI Act. Many other people have the same thought that maybe this is Zuckerberg's way of cutting off competition from data. And who knows, that may be part of it. It does feel to me from the outside, though, that if that is a part of it, it is only one part of it. For whatever reason, it feels to me like Zuck is fairly convinced that Alexander Wang is the new force and the new energy that he needs to bring in from a leadership position.
So that's all it is. It's just you have the exact same conditions on your end, but you're just paying more money. So it's an extraction move
For AI inside of Meta to right the ship. The price that we're seeing may simply be the cost that it took to get him there, with Zuckerberg being able to justify all the rest, based on, yes, their business model, of course, but also the privileged position it puts them in vis-a-vis others who need their services. I would say overall, the tone and tenor of the response is skeptical. Signal writes, so let me get this straight. Meta's AI strategy is just brute forcing with cash again? What's the vision? Just spending their way into the super intelligence race? Feels a lot like the
But yeah. Yeah.
metaverse play, overfunded, underthought, and wildly disconnected from how people perceive these experiences. Am I missing something? Flooding the
Oh, there it is. Broadcom, your favorite.
zone with capital just breeds distorted incentives and likely shallow execution. Indeed, on that incentive line, some people pointed out that the payday for Alexander Wang on this is going to be something like $4.2 billion. And so is he actually going to show up at Meta with fire in his belly, or is he going to be just wanting to go off and gallivant and party? For that, we will have to wait and see. But that was far from the only news over the last.
I don't know. For all my critiques of Alexander Wang, and there are many, he doesn't strike me as a party guy. He strikes me as like a wannabe emperor, right? Like, I do expect him to try and accomplish something over at Meta.
Day or so. One story that is getting some traction is that it appears that Elon Musk's feud with Donald Trump is weighing on his AI fundraising. Last week, it was reported that XAI was looking to raise $5 billion in debt funding. The Wall Street Journal reports that Morgan Stanley had gathered XAI executives on Thursday afternoon to pitch the debt to investors. That is the same Thursday afternoon that Musk himself was teeing off against the administration. The Journal even reported that investors were following Elon's tweets on their phones while the presentation was underway. Now, so far, this doesn't really seem to have affected things. The Journal writes,
in a different year, old lobster, sure. But in this year, well, actually, given the particular unique circumstances, you might be onto something, right? Exactly.
so far, buyers who showed initial interest haven't backed off. Indeed, demand for both the debt and equity sale has actually increased since Thursday, said one advisor to the company. Now, it feels like a pretty big grain of salt, as that's obviously the narrative that you would want. But maybe it's all an overblown story, given that Elon is officially starting to walk back his position, tweeting this morning, "I regret some of my posts about President Donald Trump last week. They went too far." For a very
Egg Rock created an image of Elon begging Trump. I'm sorry, but I can't create images. Liar, liar, liar.
long time, Elon has had a basically blank check when it comes to his companies. And so it will be very interesting indeed to see if that is starting to run out, or, as it seems might be the case, this ends up being just a very temporary bump. One company that is not having any trouble getting interest for fundraising is Lovable. The company is apparently in talks to raise $100 million at a $1.5 billion valuation, which honestly I could argue is kind of cheap.
Yeah. There is his Colossus data center. There were a bunch of these generators outside and gas powered, and they were like, they're not authorized. They just went ahead and did some shit. What up, Maddie? Blank check, I think. I keep thinking about Brewster's Millions, which is an old movie.
At the end of May, CEO Anton Osika shared that the company had crossed 60.
It was a kid, blank check, kind of, I don't remember. I know the movie exists. I know what you're talking about. Yeah. It was a solid but flawed movie. Brewster's Millions, John Candy, and what's his name? Who died? Brain no work today.
Million ARR, and that growth was up 50% week over week. This is a company that still only has like.
What up, Asa? No, not Robin Williams. And Brewster's Millions is actually it's a remake. Richard Pryor, thank you. Richard Pryor, John Candy, this fucking guy, Rick Moranis. It has its charm to it, right? And it's a remake. It's a remake of a remake. I know that there was like the other, but then are you saying there was another other? Oh, 1902, adapted into a play 1906. Holy shit. There's actually these are all 1914, 1921, 1926. Jesus Christ. Brewster's Millions Christmas. Chinese film, Brazilian film, Tamil film, Malayalam film. This is all news to me, baby. I knew that there was the original one, the Cecil B. DeMille joint, then this one with Richard Pryor, and that's it. And apparently, what up, Anti-War Machine?
28 employees. And obviously, if you listen to the show regularly, you know how central I think vibe coding will be to our future. And so it makes total sense to me that there's this big interest. And for those wondering why they would raise this money, given how much money they're making, the short answer is that this is going to be one of the most hotly contested spaces in all of AI, and it's just going to take resources to compete. If the story gets confirmed, I will of course share it here, but for now...
Yeah. Same person, disguised as a cop, went to the first house this morning, shot someone, went to another house, shot the lawmaker, their wife, and possibly a third person. So, like that. And the person is still on the loose. They were disguised as a cop, etc., etc. I did not hear that one died, so that's new. But it's some shit. Tim Walz, did the thing, and welcome to Trump's America, baby. Up next, Midjourney is doing videos.
That is going to do it for today's.
It's totally understandable.
AI Daily Brief Headlines Edition.
Just because I don't talk about news, does not mean like I am aware, right? Like my phone has a lot of, alerts coming through to let me know all the things.
Next up, the main episode.
Some big news from Midjourney, both good and bad. But starting with the good, we have our first look.
I said yesterday that I was going to try to, you might have been asleep at that point, but I said I was going to do a Saturday morning stream to make up for the the streams I missed this week. Yeah. I don't know yet. It might be a high probability. I did well on the interview. but they got to go through their process, and they might get someone who's, who interviews better than I do. But all signs are good. We're going to have to wait and see. And that's it. That's just how I roll, right? It's in the hands of the probability. We'll see what happens. Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
At the long-awaited Midjourney video. We're going to take a look at it today, and I got to admit, kind of surprised me. We'll also talk about the bad news, namely the 800-pound mouse that is loose in the house. Plus, some quick hits from Runway. Krea introduces their own new AI image model, and it looks pretty cool. ByteDance has a new AI video model, and Topaz introduces something that, well, I think we've all been waiting for, creative
homies helping homies, right? Like that phone call comes in. Oh yeah, he was a great worker. No, I loved him. It was a shame to see him go.
Upscaling for video. Lots to cover. Let's go dash video. Kicking off, Midjourney has started its first round of user ratings for video. Now, it is important to note here that this is like the earliest iteration of the model. They are still training it up. So what we're looking at here is not really refined. That said, I do think that there are a number of clues in here that give us an idea of what Midjourney video is going to be very good at once it is finally tuned up. In yesterday's office hours where video ranking was released, Midjourney CEO David Holtz did let us know that we'd likely see a lot of wonk and jank since, obviously they are still tuning this up. So naturally, I went to town and ranked, I think, somewhere over 500 videos. And in the interest of fairness, I am mainly presenting outputs that, well, I think look good. We will take a look at some wonky outputs, namely to set expectations. But for purposes of this video, I am kind of cherry picking these results. I think that's only fair considering that this is the first round of a model that hasn't been released yet. In today's parlance, let's let them cook before, we hold a Top Chef judging panel. So one of the first things that stood out to me is the model's ability to maintain that Midjourney aesthetic throughout its generation. And while that might seem a bit obvious, that was not something that I was necessarily putting money on. I think that anyone who has used a Midjourney image for image to video in any video generator, be it Runway, Kling, Minimax, or Veo, has experienced that thing where as the generation continues, you sort of lose that core aesthetic. Even in a relatively simple generation like this, we've all seen, outputs where the color temperature or saturation might change. Some places where I think this holds up extremely well are with like animated type animations, I guess. Here we have this character that's just a portrait shot. He's kind of looking around talking, but stylistically and aesthetically, he stays the same. These types of generations sometimes can wander off into like CGI territory or in this kind of hybrid retro-futuristic output. I'll admit there's not a lot of motion happening here, but I think what I'm most interested in here is the continuity in terms of stylization and texture.
Well, I will be rating out at noon, so about 45 minutes from now, Cosmic, so if you're like, my 12:15, I'll be gone by then. So you don't have to apologize to me. Enjoy your race.
In fact, I do think that if the Midjourney video model does have a superpower, it is going to be for animation and like anime styles. And that's not to say it isn't capable of doing cinematic and realistic type outputs, as we see here in this video of someone who has clearly learned a very valuable lesson about cooking with propane. And yes, that does mean that now all of our signature beautiful Midjourney women staring at the camera can blink and, turn their head ever so slightly to the right. Or even make kissy faces at you. I'm telling you, sales of monitor wipes about to go through the roof. By the way, one thing I did want to point out with Kissy Face Girl here is that teeth are looking really good in Midjourney video. In a few models recently, we have definitely seen some mouths from the big book of British smiles. But no, Midjourney seems to pretty much have teeth on point here. But one thing I definitely wanted to point out is hands and fingers. It is very good at hands and fingers, which is actually kind of surprising. Is it perfect? No, it isn't. But, hands and fingers are like the bane of AI image and video. And overall, I've been really impressed with what I've been seeing in Midjourney video. One place that I think Midjourney video really has a flex is in these like 360 rotations. This definitely saw a lot of these. I think this also showcases a unique aspect of generating video on Midjourney natively. Namely, if you try to take a Midjourney image and do like a 360 rotation on another video model, a lot of times your other video model has to make up what it does not see. And a lot of times those aesthetics may not align with Midjourney's. And a lot has been made of Midjourney's ultimate goal of becoming a world simulator or like full-on holodeck. And I do think that that is also showcased in this model with a lot of like interior shots and drone footage. And I do have to say that this stuff looks pretty good. It doesn't just look typically stock footage. It does have that Midjourney flair to it.
And this is the thing, again, going back to a subject we've touched on multiple times, is the idea that like, okay, it's okay for AI to do this thing. It's not okay for AI to do this other thing because this is sacred. It all blends together, right? Like the what he said about the Midjourney, being a world builder, that world builder aspect can be used to do world building simulations and digital twin simulations that allow the training of robots, right? Which is, the current goal, embodying AI. So that's why you can't wall off some portion of the entire process, because they are not independent of each other.
Another spot that I was relatively surprised is with camera movement and energy in the shots. I don't know why. I kind of expected the Midjourney model to be a little more on the static side, but no, I mean, it definitely takes some swings. To note, at launch, we will definitely not have any camera controls, and the prompting has been described as medium performance. So, not terrible, but not necessarily great. So depending on how this ultimately ends up shaking out, this may or may not be the model for, maximum control. That said, it does look like you can get some pretty dynamic shots out of it. And again, the model does seem very good at...
You're a fan of Kings, Cosmic?
Contextually understanding what it's looking at, considering we have this video here of this woman wearing a mask with another face on it, and the model isn't getting confused and animating the face on the mask. In terms of the resolutions of the samples that we've been looking at, they do seem to be coming in around 640 by 480, depending on aspect ratio. I'm not sure what the final resolution is going to be on release, but it has been indicated that it probably isn't going to be extremely high. I'm thinking like, 720. Additionally, there will also not be an upscaler, at least at launch. This is all to keep costs low. We'll circle back to cost in just a minute, but in terms of the upscalers, David Holtz did mention that you can always kind of bring your own upscaler. Further on the Midjourney video model, there will be no text to video, which kind of makes sense. I mean, it's Midjourney, you're generating images already. That said, you will be able to bring in your own external images and generate in Midjourney. So that's kind of cool. Overall, I have to say that I don't think it's necessarily news that, at least from a perception standpoint, Midjourney has appeared to be a bit on the ropes. And in terms of, like, I guess the overall general conversation, the video model has been seen as a bit of a make or break moment for them. In my opinion, they kind of pulled an interesting trick here and kind of skirted in between both options. Look, I don't think that this is the video generator to rule them all.
Does a good job at what?
But as I would likely tell my kids, you don't need a VO3. We have a VO3 at home. I mean, with the limited amount of generations that we've seen thus far, is doing the thing that I hoped Midjourney would do, which is doing its own thing. Be the weird art school kid in the corner of the classroom. There is no need to go toe-to-toe with Google. And while initially the plan is to start off with 5-second videos at a lower resolution, the reason for that is that they want to keep the costs low. Where that price point ultimately lands is still up in the air, but they are definitely signaling that they want it to be affordable. And that is really good to hear, considering the rising costs of all of the other video generators. Obviously, I will be keeping a very keen eye on Midjourney Video, and I will let you know as it develops. Speaking of which, the other big story coming out of Midjourney is the lawsuit filed against them by the House of the Mouse and Universal. Disney and Universal have issued a 110-page complaint against Midjourney, obviously citing copyright infringement. Ultimately, according to the complaint, what Disney and Universal are looking for is essentially, any profit made by Midjourney that can be traced back to the alleged infringement, or up to $150,000 per infringed work. So, anytime that you generated a Chewbacca, $150,000 check. Additionally, they're asking for a court order that would bar you from the ability to generate a, minion or a Chewbacca, and of course, attorney fees, because, somebody's got to get paid. So where does this leave Midjourney? Well, ultimately, they've just joined a growing club that includes, of course, OpenAI, Stability, who are being sued by Getty Images, Suno and Udio, who are being sued by essentially the entire music industry, Meta, Perplexity, and so on. Given that there was an office hours yesterday, David was asked to comment and, naturally said he could not do so. But he did say that he believes that Midjourney will be around for a very long time. As we've seen, these cases do tend to move at a glacial pace. So, I actually don't see Midjourney going anywhere anytime soon. Moving on, Runway have introduced a chat mode. This one is in beta. I've not had a ton of time to play around with it. Luckily for us, the Dimension Door did and put together this little sample here where, we begin with an image of a character and give it the prompt to create 5 angles of this character in this scene. The chat mode is obviously very happy to go through and generate up 5 more still images. And then we get the prompt, what do you think we should do to turn this into a consistent narrative? Once again, chat is more than happy to provide ideas like establishing the scene, building tension, character moment, etc., etc. From there, Door was like, yeah, go ahead, do that. And indeed, once again, Runway was more than happy to comply. And, we ended up getting some video generated. So I definitely will swing back over. I really do enjoy this new era of chat editing. It's a lot of fun. Moving over to Krea, they have released their first and own image model, Krea 1. This is obviously releasing in a few days. We'll take a look at it in just a minute because I think it's doing some pretty cool stuff. Obviously, they are touting the fact that these are AI images that don't look so AI. And indeed, it is a very fast model, as they say here, about 7 seconds. I would say about that. And as a massive bonus, everyone's favorite 4-letter F word, it is free. So kicking off some tests with our man in a blue business suit who we last saw hitchhiking down a desert highway with his wolf buddy, we end up with this. Well, I did prompt for the oncoming truck because I plan to turn it into a video of our truck driver driving completely past our blue business suit guy and his wolf, as I probably would too. This video was generated in Kling 2.1, which you can do obviously right on Krea, which is always pretty handy. Overall, I think the model looks pretty good. Here's another one of our FBI agent drinking coffee in a Pacific Northwest diner. Definitely does handle these more modern, moody type vibes. My guy here is double fisting his coffee. Man after my own heart. But one of the cooler aspects of this new model is that you can still use your own trained styles as well. I did go over this in another video. I'll have that linked down below. But, here, just because I had her, I trained up some alternate images of our character from The Bridge a while back. And so we can bring that in by adding in a style. And additionally, we can actually, create another style as well, or merge it with another style, I would say. In this case, let's use, the fantasy theme is the one that makes the most sense. So let's go ahead and add that and run it and see what we get. And we end up with some pretty cool results and, ultimately a level of consistency with the character as well. And it is kind of always a matter of playing around to find kind of the sweet spot between, a character or your style and the other style, as to have one not overpower the other. But again, as we're sort of looking here, the model moves pretty quickly. So you can kind of suss out a good middle ground pretty quickly. And of course, the benefit of the entire Krea platform is the fact that you can do all kinds of things like, take one of your images and generate it up in WAN 2.1, which is kind of an underrated video model, in my opinion. It's very good and much cheaper than, say, Veo 3 or Kling 2.1. Taking a quick look at some community outputs in Krea 1, just because, I don't cover every aesthetic territory. Stefano Mantella gave us some pretty cool photographic shots here. In particular, I really did like dystopian sci-fi lady with giant robot standing behind her, because giant robot. Sakib gave us sushi chef Shiba Inu. That is really hard to say. Honestly, this is pretty good. There's a lot of ways that this image could go wrong. And, no, it still manages to maintain the photorealism of, a sushi chef with a Shiba Inu head. GooVision gives us kind of a nice surrealistic image here. A lot of details packed into here, a lot of texture. This looks really cool. Friend of the channel, Brent Lynch, gives us a female warrior standing on a volcano. I don't know how she got up here. I hope she knows how she's going to get down. Overall, I'm really impressed with the photographic nature of Krea 1. Again, this will be available to everyone in just a few days. In the meantime, it is available for Max users starting now. Rounding out with something that I am very excited for, Topaz Labs have been on a bit of a roll. Last week, they released Bloom, their first creative image upscaler, and soon we will be getting Astra, their first creative video upscaler. So much like Bloom, it looks like we will have some options with Astra. We can upscale in precise mode to restore and enhance details while keeping the overall integrity of your video. Or you can get a little bit crazier with it with the creative mode to reimagine and enhance details. I mean, you know which one I'm going to be testing out first. The creative mode, apparently, at first at least, will only support videos up to 15 seconds long, but they do say that they will gradually increase that limit. And they do mention that
I just love that we used to be at 4 seconds and then 10 seconds and now 15 seconds. And it continues to grow, and it's a beautiful thing.
Creative bold option will work best with AI generated videos, but may introduce artifacts and hallucination details on old and heavily degraded videos, which actually might end up being a cool effect. This one has not been released yet, but there is a wait list that's linked down below. So definitely sign up so that you can get early beta access and give it a try. I am indeed on the wait list, and I've been kind of poking at Topaz to see if I can get early access. As soon as I do, I will definitely be showcasing it for you all. Finally rounding out, and I really did not get a chance to get to this one, but ByteDance did release a new video model called Seed Dance. Yeah, this looks pretty good. It's actually, funny enough, on the top of the AI leaderboards right now. I'm not quite sold on that necessarily, but I mean, it does look like a pretty good model. This one is not open source. It is a closed source model. Currently, it is available as the mini version on the Dreamina platform, so you can try it out if you want to. I mean, there are aspects of it that look good. Don't get me wrong. It's a good looking model. I'm not sure if it's, top of the leaderboard, but it does look good. I'll definitely try to get to that one next week. I mean, new video model. I'm excited to try it out, but this has been a pretty crazy week. And to be honest, I think it's just going to be par for the course for the rest of the summer. So yeah, I will definitely be seeing you soon. As always, I thank you for watching. My name is Tim.
Thanks, Tim. Up next, apparently somebody used AI to create a fake guardsman that has been named Bob.
Let's get some truth and fake on the situation. Vedika Bahel is over by the big board. Good evening to you, Vedika. Misleading and fake content about the LA protests is surging like wildfire online, and you found artificial intelligence being misused to inflame the situation.
That's right, Mark. Artificial intelligence is being weaponized amidst these mounting protests to mislead and to misinform. So on that note, I want to introduce you to Bob. Bob is a completely AI-generated National Guard soldier who was filming himself on duty to give a behind the scenes of the protest. Now, this was a video on TikTok with over 1 million views and counting. So let's take a look.
Hey everyone, Bob here on National Guard duty. Stick around, I'm giving you a behind-the-scenes look at how we prep our crowd control gear for today's gassing.
Hey team, Bob here, this is insane! They're chucking balloons full of oil at us, look!
Now, as I said, Bob here is completely AI generated. Admittedly, this is one of the better AI videos I've seen here on Truth or Fake, but it doesn't take away from the fact that it is completely synthetic. It is not real, and there are some giveaways. So if we take a closer look at some screenshots of the video, if we take a closer look at Bob's badge here, which should ordinarily show his ranking, instead we have some jumbled up text, this strange lettering here, which does make sense with AI, which often struggles to produce coherent text. We've also got some strange.
Yeah, it's gonna be about looking for the details, listening to the voice. Does it have the AI created artifacts in the voice, all that kind of stuff.
Strange behavior with the traffic lights. It's missing a color in this one, and this traffic light entirely seems to have blended all the colors. If we look closer at the night shots that we saw there.
And I believe when they are throwing balloons full of oil, the balloons go straight up in the air.
Bob's video instead of LAPD, Los Angeles Police Department. On the livery of the police car, we have LAPC. Now, the account behind Bob is titled Maybe Not Quite Real. We can see that the account user has created follow-up AI-generated videos, more AI-generated videos of Bob. But in the bio here, it says...
Oh, satire.
Very clearly that this is an account that
No, this is France 24.
Produces satirical content. However, that disclaimer isn't visible in any of the captions of these AI Bob videos, nor in the video itself. There's no logo, there's no text visible in the video. And therefore, thousands of people watching this video believe Bob to be real. This is just a snippet of the thousands of...
Okay. I believe Erica Power is a real person. I do not believe user 527388, etc. is a real person. I don't believe that this is a real person. Cole Cecil might be a real person. Melissa might be a real person. And Sky might be a real person.
Comments under that particular video of Bob. Many people were telling him to stay safe. Thank you, Bob, for protecting the country. But of course, we know Bob does not exist. This is AI. And this really shows us, Mark.
What up, Fembox man? Bob does exist. Bob is just not a real human being. That's the wrong terminology. We've seen Bob, ergo Bob exists. But Bob is not a human being.
How important fact-checking is, because even had users just checked the account that was posting Bob in these videos claiming to show behind the scenes of the National Guard, they would have an indication that this is fake AI-generated content.
One of the big problems...
First time, Maddie? Of course we're pedantic. We have to be.
Isn't it, Vedika, that people look to have confirmed what they think and tend not to look any further? And as you say, people need to really look beyond what they're seeing and think about...
Everything. Everything is beige.
About it. And obviously what you're showing, what you're pointing out to us really dictates the fact that this is actually something that's been completely manipulated. So it's not just some people misusing AI to create fake content, others are turning to AI chatbots to verify things that they're seeing. But are these results reliable? That's the question, I suppose.
Well, not really, because people have been turning to AI chatbots, which have been giving them incorrect information. For example, Gavin Newsom replied to President Trump, who had
What up, Big Ben?
Accused him of mistreating the National Guard troops. Instead, Gavin Newsom shared these photos of troops being forced to sleep on the floor, piled on top of one another. Now, these photos are verified. They are legitimate. They are exclusive photos by the San Francisco Chronicle in an article about the protest dated just yesterday. And these are easily traceable via a reverse image search. If anyone had done that, they would have easily found that these photos don't exist on the internet before this article was posted. But instead, people are turning to AI chatbots to ask about the origin of these photos, like this user who turned to ChatGPT. ChatGPT told
No. And this is going to be the worst, right? Like, this user, right? I'm about to get pedantic as fuck. This user posted picture plus words, right? We don't know where this actually came from. We don't know what existed before this conversation. This is an important thing. I understand. It feels pedantic. I understand all the fucking things, dude. But this is going to be important. If you do not show the entirety of the thing, then, like, I don't know what you did up here where you could have set up the output, right? And that's what it's going to come down to. And, like, I mean, you could fake this with a decent Photoshop at this point.
That these are pictures from the international airport in Kabul, Afghanistan, dated from 2021. This is false. This is incorrect. These are exclusive photos from LA, as we saw in the San Francisco Chronicle. Other users turned to Grok, which is X's own AI chatbot. Again, giving unreliable information. Grok first told one user that these are from Afghanistan in 2021, and then later on went on to correctly source the images as 2025 and refer to the San Francisco Chronicle. So we can see here, Mark, how unstable these chatbots are and AI in general in these breaking news situations.
And this is assuming that this is all a contiguous conversation. This goes back to the thing I mentioned the other day about like dialing in on a conversation when you get a hallucination in your initial response, right? You asked a question and then you got a response and you identified that there are hallucinations in it. Taking steps in order to have it verify the information contained therein will lead to better outcomes. You can, of course, by doing better prompts in the initial, have it verify, but a lot of people aren't going to do that.
Let's cover post-labor economics.
Okay. We got 7 minutes and 49 seconds of David Shapiro talking about post-labor economics. Let's see where David is at today.
Let's cover post-labor economics in 5 minutes or so. Let's dive right in. So first and foremost, post-labor economics is what we sometimes call the Great Decoupling. Now, let me just read it to you real quick. Post-labor economics acknowledges the irreversible decoupling of GDP growth from wage employment and builds institutions that convert the resulting productivity surplus into broad, property-based income streams, thereby freeing people from involuntary, tedious labor while safeguarding share.
And this is what you get when you try to make a neoliberal version of socialism, right? Like, or I don't even know if socialism is the accurate term, but right, like a neoliberal version of resource distribution that meets the needs of all the people, right? Like property-based income streams. That only works if people have property, right? And as like someone like Zach will be more than happy to tell you about like the difference between private property and personal property and et cetera, et cetera. And under these conditions, right, like it's David, like rather than talk about alternative forms of socioeconomic distribution, David's fear, I guess, ignorance maybe, or his particular framing on certain terms like socialism, communism. These are just words to describe a thing, right? They don't in and of themselves have any particular positive or negative outcomes. It depends on, your relationship with capital and et cetera, et cetera. But it would serve David better if he wasn't afraid of those terms, because then he could talk about those things. Unfortunately, David exists in a paywall gated community of people who will reinvent socialism and communism and various flavors of that in order to satisfy conditions that, they're afraid of.
Prosperity. Now, that is a lot of words to basically say automation is going to take all of our jobs. Moving on. The primary mechanism that we're looking at here is what's called labor substitution. And basically, labor substitution means that work goes from humans to machines when the machines are better, faster, cheaper, and safer. This has been historically true for all of human history.
This is not saying that all machines right now are better, faster, cheaper, and safer. This is talking about as those conditions are met, the labor can be offloaded from human beings onto the machines. This, to me, is a good thing, right? Like there are we'll agree to say there's a significant number of jobs that human beings should not be doing at all, right? The only reason that human beings have to do them is because those human beings are trying to make money to survive under the current meta.
And continues to be true and is only accelerating with artificial intelligence and robotics, which are just the next wave of automation. Automation is nothing new. It's been around for literally centuries. It's only become more and more sophisticated. And by the way, as automation has become more sophisticated, more labor substitution has occurred. Now, this leads to what we call the economic agency paradox, which is best summarized in this meme that I found on Reddit. Step 1, we replace 90% of our workforce with AI. Our operating costs are now the lowest they've ever been. And then every other company does the same thing, and no one is buying our products since they're all jobless. So that's kind of the the economic agency paradox in a nutshell. Next is aggregate demand or household income. So if everyone loses their job, you have to look at where does income come from. First, there's wages, then there's property, and then there's transfers. Right now, 60 to 80% of income nationally on average comes from wages, but that's declining slowly. The rest comes from property, which is stocks, bonds, rental properties, those sorts of things, real estate, and then also transfers. So this is the ratio nationally in America is about 60%, 20%, and 20%. And transfers include.
And I would need to see what these numbers are, because I would assume that most of you draw most of your income from wages, very little, if any, from any kind of property, and possibly some from transfers, right? Transfers being like, any kind of government support that you might receive, that kind of thing, or, stuff of that nature. What up, Noah? The gap here, this gap is why I'm concerned about people trying to frame this idea of post-labor economics under a theory that requires property, if you're not going to assign people property, because otherwise then they don't have any participation ability in your economic model.
Things like Medicare, Social Security, SNAP, and those sorts of things, basically stuff that is paid for directly from taxes. Now, if then we're losing wages, then we need to increase the amount of income we have coming from property and transfers. Now, if you're entirely dependent upon transfers, that means you're entirely dependent upon the government, which means that you're a welfare state or a client state, which is not good, because then all of your eggs are in one basket, and you don't have any control over your future. And by the way, if the other party gets elected next time and they say we're going to cut your UBI or whatever, then you're up the creek without a paddle. So, one of the keystone principles of post-labor economics is that we need a distributed property-based future. That means property and dividends. So, moving on. When we talk about a property-based income stream, we're talking about several different sources. So, number one, we do want some UBI to provide a floor.
I feel like he's muddying the waters talking about this as property when this would be a transfer, and he just said that. So
that is going to be government-based, tax-based, distributions. Next is going to be wealth funds. So wealth funds include sovereign wealth funds at the national level, but also urban wealth funds and community investment trusts and those sorts of things. So these are often run either by the government or by public-private partnerships. Think of them like endowments. So you'll create endowment funds that basically, just by virtue of being a citizen of a particular region, you get a check in the mail every month or every quarter or every year. The next level above that is going to be private collective property. So this is stuff that you own in common, either through credit unions or DAOs or those sorts of things, which are also likewise going to be paying rent. So when you say like, well, what do you mean? We could mean data centers, we could mean robots, we could mean any kinds of resources, solar farms, fusion reactors, quantum computers, any kind of property that can be owned. And instead of buying it individually or buying shares, you put your money and your resources together and you own it collectively. Next is private wealth. So private wealth.
Again, there's the flaw in there is that you have investment capital, right? You do require investment capital in order to participate in that type of private collective property, right? Like, unless we can all chip in to buy the solar farm, fusion reactor, what have you, then how are we going to participate in that kind of thing? And then that, again, like, you have to assign people some property, right? I don't know what else to do. Like, I'm trying to be as like as generous with his argument and take it on its merits, rather than, you know, trying to say that here's another solution that could totally work, but you don't like the word. I'm just like, how do you get to this point, right? UBI you get from the government through taxes, wealth funds. You got stuff like the Sovereign Wealth Fund up in Alaska that distributes money from oil. But again, that's problematic, because hopefully we'll continue to get away from fossil fuels, and under those conditions, the output of that sovereign wealth fund is going to decrease. So then what do you do, right? Like, it's almost like the sovereign wealth fund would be better put to transitional private collective property, right? That the sovereign wealth fund is investing in these solar farms, data centers, what have you, in order to provide the people who would be normally receiving funds from the wealth fund to achieve that property. Again, I find the neoliberal position on this to be like, to make it unnecessarily complicated, but I'm trying to stay within his framework and critique it from that point of view.
Is basically what you have today: stocks, bonds, shares, companies, those sorts of things, real estate, land. None of that really changes. And then finally, the last source of revenue is,
and of course, private wealth is problematic in that, because it allows you to have a base by which you accumulate more wealth, because you can buy out other people, right? If you allow for this private collective property, then you would have to have something in there that says you cannot sell your share of the private collective property, because otherwise, like, I'm getting X amount of dollars from the private collective property, or what credits, tokens, whatever the fuck. And then somebody comes along and says, hey, I'll give you X times 3 tokens today for your share, right? And now I have a sudden boost in my immediate capital that I can use to buy things I may want or need. But my long-term investment is now sold to someone with significant private wealth, because they're able to understand that they and act on the fact that they are going to pay X times 3 now to receive X times 30 in the long run. Does that make sense?
Going to be residual wages. So basically, we're kind of right now anticipating that about 20% of wages might stick around. Time will tell. It could be more, could be less, but right now we're trending towards that direction. Next, there are 4 pillars of civic society. So when you think about, what is the social contract? The social contract is generally between the governed and the governors. So
Maddie's still here. I would like an anthropologist's opinion on the 4 pillars of civic society.
The people and the state. However, the social equilibrium today is maintained by 4 primary stakeholders, which is we the people, so civilians, citizens, the state, which is the government, which ostensibly is built for and by us and should serve us, but more and more states are becoming less about the people and more about serving businesses and
Fair
banks.
enough.
Now, we're not going to build a society that gets rid of businesses and banks anytime soon. It's possible in the long run, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. So what we really need is to rebalance the balance of power that happens here if we lose wage power and labor power. So When we talk about economic agency, there are 3 primary pillars of power that we have. Number 1, above all, is labor rights. Labor basically is the one thing that we have intrinsic control over until machines take away our ability to work and demand money for that labor. Because the ability to withhold labor is one of the fundamental levers of power that we have, which then guarantees property rights and democratic rights. If we lose labor rights, which we are losing, not only are labor rights
Absolutely. And this again, right? Well, okay, so maybe again to try and steelman his argument and critique it from within, under a condition wherein automation starts doing a significant amount of the labor that humans are currently doing, labor rights would decrease, right? Like that would be true, right? Like that is one of the critiques that AI skeptics have about automation, AI robots in the workplace, is they would erode the limited labor rights that we currently have now. And that's a fair critique, right? Like that is absolutely valid, which is why we need some structure on the other side of that big picture. Oh yeah. No, you're right about that. I'm just talking about the fact that labor rights will, like, not talking about the current status of like union membership and labor rights as they currently exist, but labor rights as they would exist under a more fully automated future, right? That the power of labor would lose its impact, right? Like the power of labor rights comes from the ability to deny labor to the business. If the business is automated, you don't get that, you don't have those rights anymore. I can't deny you because the robot is going to go to work, right?
It's eroding under the neoliberal regime. They will erode further as automation, AI, and robotics further encroach upon one of the intrinsic levers of power that we have as civilians, which then means that our property rights and democratic rights will also erode. This is far and away the larger problem other than the economy. It's fundamentally about power. If we lose power, we lose everything. So how do we fix this problem? What we need a replacement pillar. So that becomes algorithmic rights. In this new paradigm, we replace labor rights with algorithmic rights in this new paradigm, which then shores up property rights and democratic rights. Data sovereignty, algorithmic auditability, participatory algorithmic governance, and algorithmic dividend and liability. This is all based upon technologies like blockchain, decentralized autonomous organizations, cryptocurrency, central banking, digital currencies, digital identity wallets, and those sorts of things. We are already building.
I don't know about this. It seems like a bunch of words. I would need more information here.
This infrastructure, but it is not ready yet. Sorry, but with that being said, blockchain is central to this future,
and this is always a concern, right? Like I don't deny that blockchain is a type of technology that has utility in certain spaces, right? Like I'm not against blockchain because of what blockchain actually can do. It's crypto, which is hugely problematic.
there are some of the technological affordances of blockchain make it the ideal baseline technology for this new social contract. Number one, it's intrinsically democratic. Number two, it's intrinsically decentralized. Number three, it's unstoppable. You can't shut it down.
I don't know how it's intrinsically democratic. Again, there's a lot. Yeah, intrinsically, right? Is it decentralized? I think so, right? I think functionally it could be. But I don't know how it's democratic, like, at all. Unstoppable. How is it? Like, there's a lot of data missing here, right? Like, this is where we have what, 11 seconds left in the video, and you're not going to explain this adequately. And you spent a lot of your time telling me why certain things are, like, in part of your property-based income stream, and not explaining how this blockchain power is going to do the thing. Yeah, to be fair, again, I'm trying to be as fair as possible under these conditions. To be fair, one of the things that can happen is that you either have an understanding of something, or you believe you have an understanding of something, and you believe that that understanding is self-evident because you know stuff, right? This is a thing that can happen, right? Like, and it to be fair, again, like, a lot of leftist leaning political folks believe that they can just say the words and the answers are self-evident, and they are not self-evident to all people. You have a scaffolding, a framework that you built up over time to come to a certain kind of understanding about certain socioeconomic issues, etc., etc. And this is why you can't just say bourgeoisie at people and expect them to understand what it is that you're talking about. And that goes back to the subject of propaganda and strategy, right? Like, you need to... I drink coffee and I know stuff. It just follows, right? Like, you can't, it doesn't just follows, right? Like, and I'm not saying that on every single conversation we need to go back and discuss the priors and everything else like that, because otherwise we'll never move forward. And this is a thing that people do in debates and shit like that. But ultimately, you have to be understood, right? Like, you have to make sure that everyone is on the same page. Even if they don't agree with what you're saying, they understand it. And I don't understand this, right? Like, I don't understand how this just follows.
And number four, it's permissionless. You don't need the government's permission to build a blockchain. So, with all that being said, thank you for watching. You have now learned about post-labor economics.
We have not actually learned about post-labor economics. It was close. I thought you were doing well in the beginning, and then it just, you kind of yada and hand waved the remainders of it all. Oh, I hope you enjoy this Saturday surprise stream episode of the show. I'm going to raid you out to James in just a second, as soon as he goes live. No, I raid over to James. Like, when James is streaming, it's part of the thing, because self-serving, right? Admittedly self-serving, it allows people who are in James's community, they come here and then they can get rated over there, and it helps to improve my viewership, right? Like, totally, like, above board. This is part of what I'm doing. I also want people to learn more about this stuff, and and this gives them that opportunity to do so without missing the streamer that they are going to want to watch. It's trying to, like, balance that. Oh yeah, no. Like, you have to raid. I understand there are people who don't want to raid for a variety of reasons. But, like, I don't understand not raiding, right? It's part of how you build your community. I'm not deep into the technology of blockchain, but I think it could be blockable if governments attempted it. ISP could filter, they snip the traffic. It's possible, Big Ben. Like, again, I think that blockchain is a suitable tool for creating like data stores and stuff like that. Like, there are reasons that blockchain can have utility. It's just, you know, I don't, it's not like intrinsic magic in and of itself. Thank you, Princess Kimberly. I appreciate you. I will be back Monday morning. I hope y'all enjoy the rest of your weekend. What up, Andy? And if you're going to a thing today, make sure you take care of yourself. Protect yourself, protect your neck, watch your back, head on a swivel, be careful, be safe out there. Shit's getting crazy. And in the meantime, drink your water, eat some food, take your meds if you forgot, and always remember that Shaggy loves you. And so do I. Be great.